the hell is he to say what I should know? These low-life, arrogant people are our leaders. They tell us what to do. They tell us what we should know. They are better than us. Oh,
right. In their own minds, yes.
America died when they killed Kennedy.
Jefferson wanted government to be chained down to the Constitution, and government has broken those chains. Government is now the master rather than the servant. And the sooner we recognize this, the better off we'll be. The sooner we realize that government steals our property, steals our liberty, restrains our freedom, insinuates itself in our economic activities, all for its own benefit. The sooner we recognize that, the better off we'll be. Government fights wars so that it can grow and it can enrich its benefactors. And it doesn't care what innocents are slaughtered. Just look at what's going on in Ukraine. It's being done to help the American military-industrial complex. I don't want to sound like Saul Alinsky, but sometimes even those creeps on the left are right. And in this case, they agree with us. When Rand Paul in the Senate and Thomas Massie in the House each proposed the same amendment to provide for an accounting of what happens to the money, to have American officials of the Treasury Department there with the money in Ukraine. Guess what happened to those amendments? They were buried. They weren't even permitted to come up for a vote in the Senate and the House. That's how corrupt this is. And now there are these rumors that the Ukraine government was complicit with this character, Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX and his bankruptcy. And Fried notoriously gave millions and millions to the Democratic Party. Did that come from Ukraine? And if it came from Ukraine, did it come from the American Treasury? Can't make this up. The representatives are there to enhance and enrich themselves, either materially or in terms of power.
Again, they call these people our leaders. They actually use that language, that we're supposed to look up to them as our leaders. How can anybody with a brain bigger than a pea look up to a piece of crap like the Republican Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell? How could anybody look up to a little Chucky Schumer? How could anybody look up to a lousy Lindsey Graham? How could anybody look up to these stupid, arrogant, ignorant clowns that are, quote, our leaders? And they don't represent us. Look at the money that was spent in this election. It's a democracy? What, are you kidding me? You got that governor's race in Georgia who lost, and she spent $100 million to lose. $100 million to lose. This is not a democracy. This country's been taken over by the corporations. They call it a stupid name, an inflation something bill, where they're going to give all this money to the companies to build solar panels.
Gerald, listen to this. They call it the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
They somehow think that by spending more money than they take in taxes, they're going to reduce inflation. And it's like pouring gasoline on a fire in order to put the fire out. These people are crazy.
Yep.
This is the American leadership. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation.
This is what Mussolini would have called fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers. Only the bigs are getting the money. Only the bigs are getting the breaks. And we're paying for it. The little people.
It's time to alter and abolish it. Jefferson believed that the government should be reconstituted at least once in every generation, that we shouldn't be saddled by laws and a constitution enacted in an era when the government was the servant of the people, because he knew with the passage of time, government would grow and liberty would shrink. Government lies. Government claims it supports its own restraints, but by nature it doesn't. Government has broken away from the chains of the Constitution. Government thinks it can right any wrong and regulate any behavior and tax any event and insinuate itself into any human process with no self-restraint whatsoever.
What you call government, it's not government. They're a bunch of low-life pieces of scum crap clowns that are telling us what to do.
It's
and
a
again, how
criminal
can anybody that calls themselves a man or a woman look up to these low-life creatures that are destroying our lives?
It's a criminal syndicate, is what it is.
Yep, it's a crime syndicate. Yep, there's absolutely no doubt. They're murderers and thieves. As the cover of the Trends Journal this week, it's Democrats versus Republicans equals Bloods versus Crips. They steal our money. We're just talking about how they're stealing it with this BS act that they just passed. They're giving all this money to these companies, and from all around the world, by the way. These companies are bringing them in. They're bringing them from Europe, all over. Banks are too big to fail. $29 trillion dumped into the banking system by the Federal Reserve between 2007 and 2010, to quote, because they're too big to fail. And then, of course, going on and on with the repo markets, dumping $7 trillion in from September 2019 to January 2020, so the gamblers could keep gambling. And they're murderers. How many more wars do they have to start and keep killing people all over the world? And Americans keep accepting this stuff, and these stupid midterm elections proved it. I mean, look at the results. They elected nobodies.
You're home one night relaxing, there's a knock at the door. Guy points it at you and says, "Give me your money. I want to give it away in your name." And you go, "I'm going to call the police." He says, "Don't bother, I am the police." It's a metaphor for the tax man. You go to the bank to make a loan. It's not the bank's money. The Fed just created the money out of thin air. If you default on that loan, the Fed will create more money to pay the bank back, as if there's no consequence to the economy, to this false creation of fiat money. This has been going on for 110 years, since that idiot from Princeton, Woodrow Wilson, gave us the Federal Reserve.
And taxes, federal taxes.
Correct. And World War I, and the administrative state, and the popular election of the Senate. Terrible.
And you also said he also started the government school system.
What's wrong with the public school systems? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. No competition, guaranteed clients, you, guaranteed income, your parents' taxes, equals failure. That's what's wrong with it. Indoctrination into you shall obey authority. That's what's wrong with it. Because half the people are paying into it and the other half the people are receiving from it. And the ones that receive from it are dependent on government and will always vote for the politicians who will promise to bring home the bigger piece of the pie.
There you go.
Trump told me he would release the JFK, all the JFK records before he left office. And I said, "Aren't you going to release those records? You only have a month to go." And he said to me, "Judge, if you saw what I saw, you would know why I can't release them." I was, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "I can't tell you on the phone. The next time I see you in person, I'll tell you." I haven't seen him in person since then. Well, what the hell could he have seen? It is terrible.
I mean, who the hell is he to say what I should know? Who the hell is he to say what I should know? These low-life, arrogant people are our leaders. They tell us what to do. They tell us what we should know. They are better than us. Oh,
right. And in their own minds, yes.
Yeah.
I think they scared him or threatened him. I don't know. I don't know what he saw. He was determined to reveal it, and then he saw something. He goes, "I can't reveal it." I don't know what he saw.
This should be the major issue of this country. America died when they killed Kennedy. They brought us into the Vietnam War to cover up all the money that was being spent and the people that were being killed. And they changed the immigration laws under Johnson too, to bring in more cheap labor. There were very strict regulations on how many people could come into this country. No, when they killed Kennedy, to me, this should be a major issue of this country. And that why Trump didn't release this is disgusting. And that why we, the people of the United States, are not allowed to know what happened. And we go attack other countries to bring them freedom and democracy. What a joke.
And one of the myths the American government foists on people that we accept, that all of our wars are for liberty. Baloney. Our wars are to enhance the military-industrial complex and the power of the government.
And if the people don't stand up and do something, it's only going to get much, much worse.